Hi there. Today I'm going to have a look at the 1911 census and what details it contains. To do this, I'm taking a short extract from one of the videos on my course, Family History in the UK for the Beginner Genealogist, which is available at Udemy. In this video, using Ancestry, I take a look at the household of my great-grandfather, John Bott, who also, by the way, happened to be the name of my own father as well. The 1911 census is the last census we can view, but very soon, hopefully by next year, we should be able to see the 1921 census, which is very exciting, and no doubt I'll be doing a video about that in due course. Until then, the 1911 census will be the first census you should view for any ancestors who were still living at that time. So, in this video, I've done the search and I'm looking at the page where the information is given. Enjoy. Right, here we are. So, this is what the 1911 census looks like. It's quite different from all the other census records you will see at the moment, although I am guessing that the 1921 census records will look fairly similar. Okay, so one of the major differences is that you have a household to one page. So every single household has its own page, and we have the information that we have is name and surname. There's a few more details there that you can read. I'm not going to go through all that. Relationship to head of family, age on last birthday, particulars as to marriage, profession or occupation, birthplace, nationality, and any infirmities. So let's have a look at that in more detail. So under name and surname, we've got John Bott, yes, Mary Jane, and then we've got two of their children, Walter, he was my grandfather, and Frank. And yes, I know that my father had an uncle Frank, so that is all correct. And we've also got a Rose Florence, who's a daughter-in-law. So she is married, not to Walter or not to Frank, because as you can see, they are both single. So she's married to one of their other sons, presumably. So that's interesting. You find quite interesting, always interesting to look at who else is in the household as well as the immediate family, because it can lead you to other bits of information. So relationship to head of family. So we have the head of household. That's always the top one. It's usually the husband, or if a wife has been widowed, then it'll be the mother, the wife, or widowed wife, whatever. So Mary Jane is his wife, Walter Bott is his son, Frank Bott is his son, and daughter-in-law. That's all straightforward. There are occasionally errors in these records, as we might see later on. Age and sex, that's the age is split up into male and female. That is the same on every census. So as we can see here, John is 63. Now that gives us an approximate date of birth. So if we use a calculator, I really recommend that you have a calculator to hand when you're tracing ancestry, because you will find yourself doing lots of sums, and if you get fed up of doing these in your head, then a calculator is very useful. That gives an approximate birth date of 1864. So then we would then write that down, so when we're searching for him again, we have a much easier time of it. So we don't want to note all these births down. Mary Jane was 64, and so on. Now, particulars as to marriage. The 1911 census gives us a lot more information here. First of all, we've got married, single, and married, which all the other census records have. But this one is different. Here, we have the number of years the couple have been married. So for John and Mary Jane, they have been married 35 years. That is really useful, because it means we should be easily able to find their marriage when we go and look for it. Obviously there's none for that. And for Florence, she's been married for under 1 year. And another interesting little bit of information on the 1911 census is children born alive to the present marriage. Children, and that's split up into 3 columns. Children born alive, children still living, and children who have died. So we know that they had 7 children altogether. So again, you know, that helps us if we want to go looking. Children still living 6, children who have died. So there was 1 child who had died, and I know from what my father has said that that was a young Emily Bott, and we actually have a photograph of her grave, which is quite moving. So, and you know, talking about that, it's very, very common right up until really the middle 20th century to have children dying, especially the poorer the family is, the more children generally die young. So you will find a lot of infant mortality. Now, profession, occupation. John was a carpenter, and in the 1911 census, it tells you the industry or service that they were connected with. So he's a municipal carpenter. So presumably he was working on public buildings, a worker as opposed to an employer. And sometimes it puts in here to say whether they're working at home, but not in this case. Birthplace. Now, this is always very, very useful for further searches, so you really need to make a note of this. John Bott was born in Birmingham. Now, that might have been, if I'd been searching from scratch, that might have been news to me. So that's very, very useful information. And his wife was born in Yorkshire, in Moulton. So again, very, very useful because they're both living at present in 1911 in a place very different to where they were born. And you can see their 2 children were born in Manchester, but Florence, the daughter-in-law, was born in London. Now, one thing we do have on the 1911 census down here, always have a look down here because that is the exact address of where they are living, and it also has a signature of the head of household, which is quite nice to see. The postal address is 28 Dewsbury, I think that is, Street, Cheetham. You can check that if you can't see the writing. It is also at the top, Cheetham there. Okay, so that's the 1911 census. So I've pointed out all the major things. Just coming over to the right here, I didn't take this into consideration. Nationality is shown only if they were born in a foreign country, so obviously there's nothing there. Don't worry about these extra marks here you sometimes see, sometimes in a different colour pen. They are enumerated marks put in later on when they're doing count-ups or whatever, so you don't need to pay much attention to those sorts of things. And a final column, infirmity. Usually if somebody is blind or deaf, but also this horrible phrase is lunatic or imbecile, which we now think of as quite non-PC, but of course different times. I mean, you know, back in the Victorian times, that covered a wide range of things that we would now call special needs or psychological disorders or what have you. But yeah, so don't be too alarmed if you find anything in there.